Well, what's happened to God in our society? He's been supplanted by the shopping mall. And what is the shopping mall but a very materialist labyrinth? You get lost in it, waylaid in it. You've got to have the piece of string with Ariadne on the end to get you out of it. It's a labyrinth on a monumental scale of wealth and dissatisfaction. So, perhaps it's not a surprise that something that offers you a way, not a losing maze, but a way, and a way in which you can actualize your hopes and desires without having really to admit to anything. Because I can do the labyrinth and never tell anybody what I'm thinking. I can go to the end and be all peaceful and holy and sacred and not admit a thing. It's a silent discourse. Religious bodies have always recognized that the silent discourse seldom works. Think about it. You need the interaction with the other. One of Osho's favorite stories was the monk who lived up in the cave for 20 years. Sacred, everyone knew him, they gave him his food and everything. And one day he came down and decided he'd come back to the ground and teach, walked into the marketplace, got jostled, and swore at the man. We need interaction to test and display who we are. I don't mind doing it with a group, but we're all on the same. And this is one of the magics of the labyrinth. You're walking the path, and somebody else is walking this path too, and you're never going to meet. You're all on that private journey, but on the same journey. And somebody's moved there, beyond you here, and they've moved behind you here, and are weaving with you there, but the journey is something you're doing, and so is everybody else. That's a beautiful thought. I found that very, very warming and uplifting. People have thought it represented the signs of the zodiac. People have thought it represented something from the Sophoronic tree of the Jews. People had all sorts of theories. My theory is very simple. It does fit with the astrological signs, but with the esoteric value, not with the mundane value. So, when you enter the labyrinth, you enter on the left side, which is the more malefic side, and you enter into the ring which, if you count your astrological circles from Aries in the middle to whatever it is on the outside, you enter into Scorpio. And Scorpio is about choice. You make the choice. Will I go on this path or will I not? This is the fundamental first step in all of our spiritual journeys. And of course, once you say yes, then whatever you do, whichever way you go, there's no turning back. You're always on it. So you do a quarter circle on Scorpio. You then come back on Libra. And Libra is about the nature of us. It's the ego. It's our conception of ourselves. So you do your first leg on us. Us knowing us in all of our perfections and imperfections. You then do the inner rings 3 times. You do one group of 3, you then move to the front, do one group of 3, and the other group. It's like you have acquired the Gnostic completion, the knowledge of the universe, the quadrivium and the trivium, as taught in the universities of the church. You've acquired that knowledge and understanding. Then, when you've come to that point, you haven't really begun your spiritual journey. You've been fluffing around with facts and intellectual stuff. You then come back and you do Libra again. And you do it a half circle, facing the altar. You've done one quadrant, you now do the entire half circle. It's like you, having got all that and integrated it, your personality has acquired balance. It's a beautiful move. When you make that move physically in the labyrinth, you know something incredibly powerful has happened. Because you've been through all the little short businesses before, all those little short trips. I've learned about this and learned about that. I know my geometry. And suddenly, oh, this is a very big step. And at the end of it, I've come to a point where I can begin to do the outer parts of the loop. So I do them again 3 times. And when I finish that, I come back and do Libra for the last time. The last quadrant on the right vouchsafes me the Imperium in a way, the sense that I now have done all the journey and I'm ready. And at this point, having dispensed with ego, we go through, it's beautiful, the last quarter loop, which is Virgo. To enter the center of the labyrinth, we have to go through the Virgin, to be reborn, before we can turn, run up the path on the right-hand side and enter into the rose that is the center. This just moves me so much, this level of understanding of the labyrinth, that we're not fluffing around, we're talking with the absolute fundamentals that most sacred texts will talk about. I wrote an article on that one time, and I imagined the variety of people: knights with their clanking armor, women with their babies in arms, shopkeepers, lepers, everybody walking the labyrinth. It is society on a common movement. And we do the same thing. We are society, not the whole of society by any means, but a lot of people saying there is a way to God. There is a way to something more than the shopping mall, and I can have the pleasure of experiencing the variety of that with others. I think this is very emboldening. People feel so good at having done this, but you have the problem that you walk out at the other end still carrying your shit with you. Yeah. The labyrinth I love. It's beautiful. And I love it with people. It's great. And I love its geometry and all those things. But I've found that therapeutically, I needed a hammer, a very big hammer, to get me through my stuff. And I needed it often. And that's why, I mean, the modalities we use, like sand play and voice dialogue and processing, rebirthing, I've used them now for 25 years. And gradually I'm realizing the enormous impact this has. I have a commitment to a group. And we've met now for 14, 15 years. The group changes a little bit, but we're the same group. And we work at depth and without any bars to what we say to each other. And I've discovered more about my intrinsic nature, my soul, my higher self, through that. Walking the labyrinth is a ritual. Going to Mass is a ritual. Neither make you, in my estimation, a better person, but they do help to hold you in the community of people who want to be better, which I think is a wonderful thing to have. The early labyrinths were 7 circles. The Cretan, the Irish, they're 7 rings. And 7 was the number for that period. There remained 7 rings up into and through early Christian times. There's nothing specifically pagan or Christian about 7. I do not think there's anything particularly Christian about the 11 either. As I've said, I believe the 11 is an Arabic creation. as are the number of rings around the outside. They refer to the Arabic view of nature and its science. So the labyrinth is a creation not found in Arabic countries at all. It's a purely Western creation based upon some very deep thinking by people who are trying to find a model for man's journey on the universe. How do we come to know God, or even know a little bit more about the creator of the universe? What rituals can we use besides the Mass and besides chanting and singing and all the other wonderful things that the Church created? What can we do that can help imbue this? Well, on Chartres, there are, on the outside of the building and in the windows, 4 groups of astrological signs. So that means something. If we don't take our modern view of astrology, which is like what comes out of the supermarket, but instead we take the ancient esoteric view, then we see that not only does the labyrinth have a meaning in astrological terms, but so does the whole cathedral. And this is because what these guys attempted to do was to find, let's call it the formula, by which they could understand the whole world, in which they could see that the unity that comes from God is the proof that God created this unity. And the labyrinth plays a very essential part in that understanding.